Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to go through the presentation to get a brief overview of Escort management, give you the lowdown of the features and the benefits, and then walk through a live demo session on creating escorts, scheduling escorts, and a small workflow as to how a permittee or a hauler schedules an escort and the permit office goes ahead and approves them. With that, I'm going to go through a couple of slides. So what is the Escort management? It's basically a part of the SUPERLOAD Connect edition. It's a module which rests within it, and the haulers or the carriers would be able to request, they would be able to schedule, they would be able to report any police or any other escorts, say bridge escorts, or if it's transportation authority escorts, for all your oversize and overweight permits, which do need escorts. Going to the next slide, the capabilities of this module are basically helps you manage and schedule escorts, see it live on the system. Also, it helps you manage your specific escorts with various state agencies. So in case of Maryland, is what I'm going to show you as the live demo. They do have multiple agencies that they work with for escort in their case, which is going to be Baltimore City, the state, and also the Transportation Authority. So various state agencies can manage one singular escort through one singular system, and everything happens on one screen. So it helps coordinate and keep it all in sync instead of using email or Outlook to actually schedule escorts. The next capability is it has a notification feature. So if you have officers specifically assigned to the escort, or if you have drivers that are going to be driving the oversized overweight vehicles, and if you want them to be notified of specific changes to the status of their escorts, again, that feature is also supported. So any change, and again, they get notifications through email as well as SMS or text. Another feature is where if once you schedule all the escorts for a specific permit, and it gives you a calendar overview, and you can actually export that and have it sync to whichever calendar functionality that you're using, if it's Outlook or if it's Google Calendar. Some of the brief benefits, basically it's a one-stop solution inside the SUPERLOAD Connect Edition application. It has role-based access, so different agencies might have different statuses to schedule them. So it gives you the capability of a role-based access system. Also supports scheduling of multiple escorts for multiple agencies. And also gives you an audit trail of all the escort schedules. So you can actually revert back to a date in the past to see a specific permit for which you had different escorts. Or if you have escorts that are coming up in the future, again, you can search by date and look at all the scheduled escorts for that specific permit. With that, I'm going to go through the live demo and give you an overview of where the escort management functionality is located within the SUPERLOAD Connect system. To show you the demo itself, I'm going to be logging in as a permittee or a hauler. And
Hey, Ashar?
yes.
Sorry, just had a question come in here. I know you mentioned this was what you're going to be showing is specific to Maryland, Baltimore City, etc. One of the questions came in, and maybe it'll come up as part of the review here, but says, are Baltimore City escorts still on specific times? Maybe you'll touch on that.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, as far as I know, they do have specific time frames for when people can schedule escorts, and there is a drop-down menu inside the escort management module itself, where if you have specific schedules, you can actually set those. And I'll show that once I go over and do the workflow.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yep. So now I am logged in as a permittee or as a hauler, and as this is the Maryland system that I'm demonstrating, you're going to see specific permits and whatnot to them on their screen. But in the product itself, whichever states have their permits, it's what's going to show up on the screen. The Escort management itself is under My Admin, and that doesn't change from the SUPERLOAD Connect product. So once the user clicks on My Admin and then navigates through the options on the side, there is an option which is called as Escort Manager. Once you click on that, what that does is basically gives you two grids, a grid on the top and a grid at the bottom. So the grid on the top is actually all the escorts for any number of permits that you have on a given day. Now, if you want to take a look at escorts for a different uh, calendar day, you can select, say, if I want to look for my permits which have escorts on the November of the 5th. And what that does is that basically gives you, and it changed my view from the 22nd to the 5th. So if you look at the start date of this permit, it actually is from the 5th. And again, as you have number of escorts for a specific day, the grid on the top is going to get populated with those records. The bottom grid is pretty much a calendar schedule, and once you update all the records for your specific permit for specific escorts, the calendar table is going to get filled up. And that again, it's based on the time. So based on whatever time the escorts are scheduled, it's going to populate it based on that time. So if I scroll down, there's one escort scheduled, if you can see on the grid on the top, and then it shows up on the calendar at the bottom. If you actually move your mouse or cursor towards that specific menu item over here at the bottom, it gives you more information about that escort itself, like the start date, the end date, the timing of the escort, and what organization it's tied up to, and the last updated date. Now, if you want to go ahead, if you want to, if you have to update the escort schedule, all you have to do is select one of the records in the rows over here and click on Update Schedule. And then that again gives you a pop-up window with all the other options. On the top, you have the permit ID for which you have the escort, the start date and the end date of the permit itself. Then if in this particular case that I had, the permit had multiple agencies that they had to schedule escorts with. So if they have multiple agencies, the drop-down from the organization menu will actually give you all the agencies with whom you would need to schedule escorts. So in this case, they had Maryland Enforcement, the Transportation Authority, then the Bridge Office in the Baltimore City, and the City Enforcement. So if you go to the next drop-down menu, that gives you basically the number of escorts for a specific agency. So if I go ahead and click Baltimore City Bridge, in their case, they only had one escort, so it just shows one. If I switch back to Maryland Enforcement, it goes back to multiple escorts. Yeah. And then it gives you 1, 2, and 3 for them. So it helps you schedule all the escorts for a specific permit right within one screen where you'll be able to select multiple agencies, and then if you have multiple escorts for those agencies, you can schedule those through here. Now let's go ahead and go to the next one. I'm going to go to the Baltimore City Enforcement just to show you a question that Jim had asked earlier, which had come in. So in case of Baltimore City in the state of Maryland, they do have specific time slots where they do provide escorts. So once you select any specific agency which has specific schedule, it will populate with the specific time frame during which they would actually schedule their escorts. So in the Baltimore City Enforcement case, it's from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. So let's go ahead and select 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then if you look at the start and the end time, it automatically got selected. Now the date again, you would need to change it to the date then on which you need to get a specific escort. So in this case, I'm going to be doing it on the 11th, on the November 5th. So I'm going to do 5th of November. And once you tab out, it's going to update the end time as well. All the next information that you see as far as the permittee or the hauler goes, you actually do not need to enter it. It's just there for the permit office to enter, and just in your case, it is there as you guys are going to be scheduling the escorts. So once you go down to the screen, there are multiple statuses in the drop-down, one which says not scheduled, one which says scheduled, completed, and canceled. So based on whatever a specific schedule is of the escort, if it's not scheduled yet, you click on scheduled. If it's completed, you can mark it as completed. Or if you no longer need the escort, you can cancel the escort. So in this case, if you select schedule, and if you want to add comments, again, it's totally up to you. Click update. What that does is that's going to, again, update the record for the Baltimore City enforcement. Now you can do the same process for different agencies with different escorts over here. Let me go ahead and close this one out. And if you go ahead and look at this specific record, it was initially not scheduled. Now it is scheduled. So if you scroll down again, and you'll see all the information for that specific escort that you had scheduled on that specific day. So once all of this is done, it again goes back to the permit office and for them to take a look at basically either approve it or deny it or go ahead with the escort schedule that you have provided. So with that, that's a brief overview of how the escort system looks like. Now I'm going to give you the triggers that we use actually from the permit as well as from restrictions to indicate how we know the specific rows or the specific grid gets filled up. So let me go back and on Escort Manager, and let me go back to my presentation again. So as far as how we know a specific permit does need an escort, there are a couple of different real-world scenarios. The first one is restrictions. So if there are specific restrictions that trigger from the permit where it says that if it's oversized, if it's over a certain width, or if it's over a certain height, or if it's over a certain weight, does need an escort. And if that restriction gets added, then the system automatically knows that the specific oversized overweight permit does need an escort. The next, another of the triggers that we use, at least in case of Maryland, is the fees. If the permit office user indicates that they have to have escort fees for the specific permit, then that again gives the system a go-ahead to add an escort for that permit. And then the permit office also has options to enter escorts manually. So if they indicate during the permit process that they need to add number of escorts to that permit, again, that will let the system know that that specific oversized overweight permit does need an escort. I do have a small video that I'm going to play to just to give you an idea of where the escorts are going to be. So this is how the screen looks like in Maryland for the permittees, and they enter all the information in for their truck, their trailer, the axle information. And once all this is verified, you go to the trip page and define a specific trip. Once the trip is defined and the analysis happens or the analysis passes, I might have some issue over here with the video playing correctly. Give me 1 second. All right. So let me fast forward this a little bit and going to the trip page once you get your trip done. and you have your trip defined, you know the route that you're going to take. You go to the review page, and on the bottom of the review page, usually the restrictions will show up with all the restrictions specific to that oversized overweight permit. So if you go scroll down, and I'm going to pause it over here, underneath the restrictions, you'll see that there are 2 Escort vehicles. So that, again, lets the system know that that is an Escort. If you go to the payment page, there will be a couple of fields in Maryland which will basically indicate that there will be Escort. So in Maryland's case, there is the monitoring fee, there's the police fee, and then Baltimore and MTTA have their own monitoring fee and their police fee or traffic escort fees. So the next part of the slideshow or the presentation would be where I'll do the demo for workflow as to how the permittee goes ahead and schedules an escort. We actually did that while we are going through the process of the overview. So I'm going to show you how it looks like, and then go ahead and show you how the screens for the permittee looks for the permit office user looks like. So let me go ahead and select the date that I was scheduling for. So I have a couple of different escorts over here, and the ones which are not scheduled, you can click on and record. You can click on update schedule. So if you look at the screen, as I had already scheduled the escort number 1, it automatically got to escort number 2 because that's the record that I selected. Now in case of Maryland, you can actually indicate what time slot that you want to have the specific escort schedule. So you click on the date that you want to have it. So say if I want to do it on the 6th, and you can change the time from 5 p.m. and tab out of it. The system will automatically change it and give a half an hour extra after or whatever time that you schedule. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and do it till 8:30 and tab out. In this case, as you're a permittee, you wouldn't have all the pertinent information. You can leave all of this blank. Click on scheduled, and then click update. Right, and then that again schedules. You have done your part of scheduling the escort for that specific permit for that specific agency. Now go ahead and close that out. And what I will do now is show you a screen as a permit office user as to how you go ahead and either accept or you can deny, or you can actually leave a comment over there. So in case of permit office user, again, it's the same process. So once they log in, you click on My Admin. And then they do have multiple options, which is different than what the permittee has. So under permit management, they have Escort Manager. They click on that, and the screen loads up with the pertinent information again. As you can see, the screen's not different. It's the same screen. So if you click on a specific date that the permit office user wants to take a look at all their escorts, say in case where I scheduled it for the 6th. So I select the permit date, and it loads up all the escorts for that day. So I click on a specific one which was scheduled. Same process, click on update schedule, and it loads up all the pertinent information. Now in case of permit office user, they would have to enter the officer information, and if they get the driver information as part of the comments, they can enter that. So let me go ahead and select a specific officer name. So again, if all that information is there internally, so in case of the permit office user, they don't need to actually go and type anything in. Let me click on another from over here, and then as you can see, they already had an email address, so that gets loaded up. They'll enter the information for the officer. They can either notify by email, they can notify by a specific phone number, and if the permit office user has the driver information, they can enter the email address of the driver and whatnot. Now in case of permit office users, they have a couple of more different options as part of the status. they have denied and they have accepted. So once the permittee clicks it as scheduled, the permit office user can go ahead and click on accepted and update it. So what that does is it updates the specific record for that. There you go. So let me close this one out, and then I'll show you how the grid looks like now. So this specific Escort, which was scheduled earlier, now it got updated, and now it's accepted. Now this specific one, say the permit office user looks at it, and they see that there are no times or there are no people available in this specific time frame. They can either update the start and end time, or they can go ahead and deny this. And say in this case, if I want to deny it, click update. Again, this is another thing in case of permit office users, certain fields are supposed to be made required. So in case of permit office user, they would need to add specific information for the officer. So let me go ahead and enter that information in and click update. And in case of permit office users as well, they do not need to close out of this dialog box. They can schedule and update and do whatever they have to do within the same screen. So if they have to take a look at the other ones, they can actually take a look at the other ones right here. And so let me go ahead and close that one out. All right. So as you can see, one's accepted, one's denied. There's actually 3 scheduled over here. And if you scroll down for the specific time frame, again, you'll see all the information once you hover over that record over here. Scroll down. The other ones were at 5, so you'll see that as well. So the 2 scheduled and 1 was denied. So that is pretty much how the workflow works. The permittee actually starts off the process of scheduling it, and the permit office user then goes ahead and either accepts it, denies it, or if they have more information, they'll see that in the comments section. That pretty much concludes the Escort management part overview. We went through the overview of it. We went through the specific functionality, the benefits and the features, and I showed you how a permit office user as well as a permittee interact with the specific module to get their job done, to also get the permits scheduled for oversized overweight permits. I do have to tell you that this is currently, as I'm showing you, the Maryland system, so some triggers are specific to Maryland, but it is customizable.